I'm excited to join you today to discuss a topic that sits at the very heart of our evolving workplace, performance management and the imperative shift towards a skills-based approach. Welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is brought to you by Betterworks, the leading performance management solution for enterprises. I am the Chief Product and Technology Officer here at Betterworks, and I'm joined by my colleague, Bruce Walcroft, Principal Solutions Engineer, who will be joining me on stage a bit later in the webinar. So today we'll examine the current state of HR and workforce planning through the lens of skills. This will be followed by a tour of the Betterworks product with a focus on how the Betterworks performance management and calibration modules support skills inference in succession planning. The workplace has undergone radical changes in the past 5 years. The pandemic transformed where we work and the tools we use, while AI has redefined what we work on, fundamentally altering the nature of many jobs. These disruptions were unpredictable and have demanded flexible, adaptive responses. Skills inventories provide HR teams with an agile way to assess workforce capabilities and take strategic action. However, there's a disconnect. While most HR professionals acknowledge a skills gap in their organization, many employees lack clarity on the skills they need to develop, both to advance their careers and to align with organizational goals. The growing skills gap that we're observing is driven by several factors, with three standing out. A significant portion of the workforce is retiring, leaving critical knowledge gaps. Incoming workers are not acquiring skills as quickly as previous generations, and AI disruptions are rapidly transforming the skills required in today's workplace. So let's take a quick poll. In a moment, you'll be prompted to submit the answer to the poll. And if you don't see the prompt pop up, you can find the poll on the sidebar to your right. It is now lit up. So please go ahead and go to the polls tab and answer our poll if you don't mind. Let's see how the responses are coming in. All right, can we end the poll so we can see how folks are responding? Great, well, thank you for submitting that poll. I really appreciate it. Yeah, okay, so definitely room for improvement. I think we're all, a good portion of us are feeling that way. And that's what we're here to do. So we're excited to be talking about this and figuring out how we can improve the situation for all. So we'll get those slides back up and continue on. Great. So as many of you have noticed, it's not always clear to employees what skills the organization truly needs. So this lack of clarity is contributing to a growing skills shortage across the workforce. In fact, 78% of organizations have had to adjust job requirements or descriptions because they can't find the talent with the necessary skills. A moment ago, I asked if you felt you had clear guidance about the skills you need to develop. So what about your workforce? Do your employees have a clear understanding of the skills they should be developing? So go ahead and pop over and answer this next poll. Thank you. I'll just give you a minute to go ahead and do that and then see what the results look like. All right. Let's flash up those results. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, clear as mud. We got a good number of those. So yeah, there's definitely some room for improvement, and that's okay. That's what we're here for. And we're excited to talk more about how we could potentially help you with that. So why don't we bring those slides back up and continue on our discussion? Fantastic. So, despite our best efforts, most employees feel they lack clear guidance on the skills their organizations want them to develop. They also feel undersupported by their managers. So, you might have seen this. A recent survey by Lighthouse Research revealed that less than half of employees have had a recent conversation about skills with their manager. This lack of dialogue has a lasting impact, not only on employees' growth, but also their engagement and retention. So employees who haven't had a skills conversation with their manager in the last 12 months are more than twice as likely to feel uncertain about their future and to be actively seeking new job opportunities. Definitely something we want to address. So Betterworks gives leaders at top companies around the world the technology solution they need to create transformational managers and engage employees. We empower better connections, unlock better performance, and help businesses achieve their most ambitious goals, and as a result, make work better. Performance management has changed a lot since the 90s, going from top-down performance reviews to including 360 feedback, to adding in coaching and mentoring programs, to including real-time or project-based feedback, and kudos in the 2010s. Then the 2020s brought continuous performance management, and now we're seeing a new shift towards skills-based performance management. So don't worry if you're stuck in the 90s, though. These changes happen much faster than most organizations could keep up with. So I'm curious, where are you on this spectrum? Please drop a note in the chat. I would love to see how many of you are still feeling a bit stuck in the 90s. At Betterworks, we believe the next evolution of performance management is the integration of skills into your existing processes. Performance management plus skills just make sense. In many ways, it's already happening. We have development feedback, development conversations, development goals, and recognition, which are all full of skills. So how do you collect all this information? And for employees, where they take these actions is almost as important as whether or not they do. That's because HR processes often leave employees feeling like the ball in a pinball machine, bounced around between different, often disconnected tools, making it hard to remember which app to open for what, and then where to find the information later on. This disconnected approach to performance and engagement tools often leads to poor adoption and utilization, leaving HR teams with little to show for their hard work and limited data to run insights on. At Betterworks, our vision is to become the center of the performance management experience and give employees one place to log performance data, along with a suite of tools that help surface insights across multiple performance activities simultaneously. So whether they are in the Betterworks app itself or making updates through Slack or MS Office integrations, employees and managers know where to go and can easily take the actions they need to. And by centralizing performance data in one location, we can also give HR teams more granular insights into their workforce. So now the exciting time has come, and I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Bruce, who's going to show you around the Betterworks product. So Bruce, why don't you join me upstage?
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Great introduction there. I am really excited to share with people today part of the Betterworks products around the skills and succession areas. But as you've seen from the product demonstration agenda there, we're going to start focusing on some of the other areas of the tool, first of all, because one of the critical things that many of the people that I speak to on a day-to-day basis, when they get very excited about the whole concept of a skills-based and a succession-focused way of working, they really forget that actually to get there, you need to focus on some of the fundamentals to start off with. Because in order to get to that skills approach, you have to get the employees to trust that you're being fair and equitable in the way that you work. And that means you have to put a lot of thought into the earlier steps in your performance activities, making sure your performance process is seen to be that level way of working, and then using the calibration as a way of proving that everything is on an even footing, particularly when you're using skills-based succession planning. If you try and choose people based on the skills that they hold, they have to have trust that the evaluations that you're doing with whatever systems you're using are carried out in that way. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove the slides and bring up my own screen. I find the my button. It's gone. There we go. And we're going to walk into the Betterworks platform now. One thing that I always like to highlight whenever I'm showing anything within the Betterworks platform is we know that the tool is an important part of your performance management process, but also making sure that people have the right education and assistance when they're carrying out any activities within any kind of platform is critical. So the ability we have within Betterworks to embed guides throughout the tool can be really powerful. Here you can see I've embedded a guide created by Ashley Litzenberger in our team, who actually runs the Betterworks podcast. If you haven't listened to the Betterworks podcast, I'm going to evangelize about that now, because it's a great way to learn a lot about what's happening in the HR world. But this is just something you can drop in, making sure that whatever activity people are doing for the first time, you give the context. And importantly, this can be different for different groups or different countries or different parts of the organization, making sure whatever way you want to approach succession or encourage them to carry out the skills processes, they're given the support and education through videos, links to your documentation, or just a guided walkthroughs through the activities. But when we're focusing on the performance process, we've seen a lot of shifts towards this continuous way of evaluating employees. And that's really important when you're moving to this skills-based focus. Obviously, you're going to have things like the year-end reviews that you're going to carry out within your tools, but also allowing employees to choose when are the right times for them to update their skills, or for them to have discussions with their managers or peers about how they're progressing or along their chosen career route is really important. So Betterworks allows employees to, at any time, to go in, or managers to go in and select employees, and then choose to start off conversations with their manager around any activity. So maybe we want to make sure that there's an appropriate growth plan in place for employees whenever they want to make a change to their skills inventory, or whenever they're wanting to change the path of their career and highlight areas that they would be interested in moving towards. And giving them the appropriate templates to support that is really important. If I click on any of these templates, you'll see it explains what it is that we're going to be doing within this section. So the manager and the employee can self-determine what are the right things to do. So in this case here, when we carry out the growth plan, if I just go into one that Damon has already initiated here, it's a set of template-driven questions that the manager and the employee are going to answer. And in this case here, when we're looking at the growth plan, this is where we can start focusing in on the skills areas, reminding the employees to think about what are their top strengths. Often when you use terms like skills, employees get very, very nervous and paranoid and are not sure what they should be thinking about. But ask them about the year that they've just had. What are the successes they've achieved? Remind them with the goals that they're working on at the moment to think about those kind of activities that they've been doing well, or look into their feedback and make sure that you've got everything that they've been carried out and the recognition and feedback that they've received is being reflected in these kind of evaluations you're carrying out. So collecting all of this information is a critical part of that process. And the crucial thing with the Betterworks tool is that you can change any of the questions, any of the templates that are put in place here to make sure that they're reflecting the kind of activities that support your skills and succession planning. And part of that is going to be that end-of-year review. End-of-year reviews are a great way of making sure you can level set. It's an activity that almost every organization carries out. Within that end-of-year review, you're going to evaluate how things have worked. You're going to use the same tools to look at the skills and feedback activities. You can also do things like look at performance snapshots to see how an employee has performed over time, rather than just fixating on how they're doing at this current point in time. So giving that really broad view of information for the managers and employees to use as part of their process. And part of this discussion is likely to be around, as well as the skills, it's likely to be around the performance of the employee. And this is a really important part of any succession and skills process that you're carrying out, because obviously when you go into a succession plan, one of the key drivers is going to be around the performance of the employees. Those high-performing employees are the ones that you're wanting to make sure are plugged into the appropriate succession plans. So making sure that within those end-of-year processes, you have the ability to collect those the data points, even other data points such as the risk of an employee leaving or the impact of them leaving the organization. And this is data that was really powerful to be able to receive. You may notice, if you're eagle-eyed, that this area here is gray, whereas the top area before was white. And that's reflecting that these questions that I'm asking here, or asking the manager to fill in, they're what we refer to as confidential questions. These are questions that are going to be available for the HR team to make use of, but are not going to be visible to the employee. So the employee will see the earlier information entered by the manager, but these responses here are just going to be used by us to carry out calibration processes. And that calibration process in this new skills world is so critical, whether it's calibrating on the skills levels that people hold, or whether it's calibrating the performance activities that they do. Really critical to make sure you do that, because that's the only way that employees will believe the company's being fair and therefore trust them when it comes to career development and succession planning processes. And in Betterworks, calibration is made super easy. It's something that you can do in lots of different ways. You can set up templates that allow you to evaluate data in, as you can see, vastly different processes, whether it's the traditional 9 grid that people have probably used all the way since the 90s, where you're looking at performance and potential. You can bring that up and bring the information in here to be able to support and view that. This is automatically being generated from the data you enter into those conversations. So if you're currently having to carry out a really painful, long administrative process to get all of your data together, or I hope not, but if you're still sending around this data in Excel spreadsheets or on PowerPoints, obviously in a very insecure way, then this is a great, simple way of making that whole process streamlined. And using different models, we're seeing a lot of companies start to look at the what and the how, or my favorite at the moment is the skill and the will matrix, where you're evaluating whether employees have the skills to be able to carry out activities, and so the ability to do them, and whether they have the willingness. And this is a really important part of the succession planning process, because no matter how many skills the employees have, no matter how right they are for the roles that you're evaluating, if they're not willing to move, if they're not willing to put the energy in to be able to give you the performance levels that you require, then what's the point of putting them into those new succession roles? So within this process, as well as evaluating the key information from the conversations, you can choose to look at some of the skills-based data that's coming through. You can ask certain categories to come through. Maybe we're going to look at the communication skills or the leadership skills of our employees. And you can see at the bottom here, we've got lots of different options. I've got artificial intelligence, a new one I've added in today, to highlight the levels that my employees have of those skill sets. So you can evaluate. This is a way of starting off your succession process, if you choose, by evaluating the skill levels. And also, I've seen some organizations start to carry out skills calibrations. So they'll get all of the people that have a certain skill identified. They'll get the subject matter experts to then look at those skills levels and evaluate how they feel those employees have been rated, and make sure that there's a consistency again across the organization, because some people in the organization, when they're evaluating their own skill levels, will think they're very high when they don't have the expertise to understand what a high skill level would look like. So this gives you different ways of level setting. And our tool makes it super easy. We can, again, just click on any of the grids to see the people that have been placed in that grid. We can filter by any of the items. So if I wanted to just see people that were highlighted at a certain communication level, we can highlight and see those people specifically. And if we find somebody and we think they've been rated in the wrong way, it's a simple process of dragging them to where we think they should appear to make that change and carrying that out. That's all audited. That's all able to be fed back into the employee's profile very easily within our tool. So using that calibrated data, we've then got really fair, equitable way of working. And later on, I'll show you some of the tools that will help to support that process, which means we then have the ability to look at the succession planning and the skills processes within the organization. I'm just going to move into something and give you, as Cheryl said, a peek behind the curtains of things that are coming in 2025 for us. I'm going to move into part of the tool that's around the succession planning process that we're currently beta testing with our clients. And this is a way of just making sure you can put in place the plans that you have around any roles, whether those are roles that are populated by employees or whether these are roles that currently you have empty that you're wanting to fill. We can use the tool to then carry out skills matching, to pull up suggestions on who are potentially the people that should be pushed into this view here, and also add in our own potential successors. And when you have that succession plan in play, you've then got the ability to look at any of the employees to add notes and to evaluate. So if we want to compare a number of the people here, I'm just going to pick the top 2 for the example here. We can click to compare the employees, and then we can we can click through to the I'm on the wrong screen here. Click through to evaluate those two. We'll be able to bring a comparison of the two. Apologies, my screen's not letting me go there at the moment. We can bring out comparisons of the two. We can evaluate them against the skill levels that we've seen here and see where there are those gaps appearing around those particular employees. So what this allows you to do is evaluate the development paths that you want to put employees on. If they're being moved towards succeeding into specific roles, we can then look at the skills gaps that we have within those particular areas to enable them to carry out that role. And we can use that to inform the goals and the activities that they carry out later on. And how we're carrying that out is based on the skills profiles that we hold against the employees. So again, I'm just going to move into one of my employees here to look at the skills profiling. So against the employee's talent profile that we can see on the screen here, where you can see all of the key information about them, you'll see we hold the skills and competencies. And these are the skills and the competencies that the employee and the manager have evaluated against their own record to highlight the things that they're able to do. So they can come in here at any time, they can edit to suggest that they've made changes. But importantly, when we're editing any of these skills levels, the tool has built into it the ability for evaluations to be carried out by managers and employees. We can self-select and choose the levels that we believe we've reached as part of that, but also can use AI to carry out part of this process. And AI is obviously a critical tool to help employees to get the right information. I know from working for many years in skills-based organizations, the skills matrix will often be out of date. Very, very quickly, employees will carry out new tasks and learn new skills, and they will forget to go into their records and carry it out, or they won't even think about things. Often, the great thing about great employees is that they don't believe they hold skills. They actually think that what they're doing is just very naturalistic. And you have to remind them that what they're doing are skills that they should be recording and tracking. So what the tool will do is it will make suggestions around what are the potential skills that it's seeing them to providing. And we can pick those skill levels again. Importantly, when we look at any of the skills that we select from here, the tool will tell us why it feels that this was a skill that they held. So it's evaluating against the goals that they've completed. It's looking at the performance reviews that have been carried out between the employee and the manager. It's looking at the feedback that they've been given throughout the year. And it's using all of that key information to then say, this is where we believe that you've shown that you have these particular skills. So it's prompting the employee to think about things that maybe they just don't consider to be a skill, and allow you then to build up that really strong skills matrix. And it's really important, obviously, if you're going to be making choices around which roles people can succeed into based on the skills that they've got against their own talent record, it's really critical that the employees understand what skills they should be evaluating. So our tool will use the terminology of the skills that you set and the skills that you use, and we'll use those to evaluate the employees and give the suggestions. We can also go to external activities, looking at things like LinkedIn to be able to pick information from the tool. So the employee or the manager can evaluate this, and if they feel it's a skill that they have, or if they disagree with the level that's been selected for them, want to change that level, they have the ability to do so and can then update and add that into their record as appropriate. So we're getting much more real-time, much more critical information coming through by this skills process. And as I say, it's really critical when you're carrying out that succession planning based on skills that talent record is constantly being updated through that performance review and through this activity to make sure that it's constantly kept in real time and adjusted as necessary. So how do we ensure that the employees are starting to focus on actually developing these skills? You know, if I'm an employee and I've been placed onto a succession route towards a particular role in the future, but there's a clear gap that's been highlighted within that process, then how do I start to develop and bridge that gap? Because, I mean, there's the danger we'll discuss it in the succession plan. We'll know there's a gap, but when it comes to that important setting of goals, it'll be forgotten. Well, again, Betterworks can really assist with that. If I just move back to my first screen here and go into the goal setting area for Michelle here. When Michelle goes and sets goals or changes goals at any time in the year, she can create goals herself by clicking on the create goal button and go through and put in the information for that goal. But this is likely to mean that she's going to forget about those succession plans that are in place, or even potentially she may not have been informed. This may be something that you're keeping solely within the managerial or sort of senior levels of the business. So Michelle may not know about this. But what our tool can do is using the Goal Assistant, another AI-driven tool. It can make suggestions and generate goals for Michelle based on the data that it knows. It knows what her job description is currently. It knows the succession plans that you're putting in place for her. It knows about the goals that her manager's working out, the strategic goals the business holds, the feedback she's been given, the performance reviews. So many different things that the tool has access to be able to see and read. And that means it can come up with a hyper-personalized list of goals for Michelle to consider. So these are things that, based on information that the system knows, that it's suggesting and saying that she should think about taking on as goals. So we can see here, there are some that are based on previous goals that she's carried out. There'll be some that are based on feedback she's been given, or the manager's goals that are in place at the moment. So you've got a lot of alignment occurring. You've got a lot of driving towards the new skills development that Michelle needs to carry out, as well as improvements based on feedback that have been given by her peers. And you'll see there's a mix of developmental and business-focused goals that are being suggested here. Importantly, with the power of AI, Michelle is the decision maker. She looks at these goals and says, I think these are interesting. I'm going to pick a few of these and add them in. But she can edit them, she can adjust them, she can add in her own measures, or she can completely ignore these and say, I don't feel that these are appropriate. I'm not going to take them on. So she still has all of the power around here. But molded into this, the skills that are being suggested in the succession planning are going to be fed through. So if those gaps are in place, these are going to be fed through and surface as part of that. And perhaps she's already having discussions about career path that she wants to work on and knows there's gaps that aren't even in the succession planning. So Michelle herself can prompt and put in the skills that she's interested in developing, or the key areas that she wants to put a focus around, and she can generate based on that information. So she can basically ask for new goals to be generated, and the tool will take into account everything it already knows, and then just add in any keywords that she's decides to adjust around that particular process there. So we're getting all of that strength around that skills generation to drive that continuous improvement of the skills that Michelle and her colleagues are all holding, which means that when it gets to those evaluations around the succession planning, the right skills are going to be identified, the right matches are going to be made. And this often means you're going to get people in your succession planning that you never even thought would appear. You're going to know all of the people in the finance department that are going to be appropriate for the next finance manager. But did you know that Joey, working in marketing, actually spent years in the finance team before, has all those skills, and actually is somebody that potentially could come in and take that role if you have a gap when somebody leaves. So this is really the power of using AI to keep it all fresh and keep it all moving along. Alongside that, AI generation of the goals, making sure it's all up to date, moving along and progressing, so you can build it all into your particular activities. And then the last thing I'll mention, which we're very happy to demo for people at a future date. The other crucial thing to build into this process is making sure you use the reporting facilities. We have a really powerful layer of advanced analytics within Betterworks that will allow you to drill in to all of this information, looking at all of the performance activities and looking at the feedback and skills in other areas, and making sure you get the right data points to support a global or a divisional focus on the skills needs that you have and the areas that you need to develop. But what I'd like to do now is invite Cheryl back on to the stage with me, and I'll stop sharing my screen, and we'll look if there's any questions that we should be responding to.
We have a couple more slides that I'm going to go through. If you
Sure.
get those back up. Awesome. Thank you so much. Just a couple more ideas we want to cover before we get into the Q&A. Thank you so much, Bruce, for going through that demo. It was fantastic. So before we get to the Q&A, I want to wrap up with a few ideas you can walk away with today to bring skills to the forefront of your existing processes. Adopt a continuous performance management approach. Conversations, feedback, recognition, and regular manager check-ins. This creates a framework for manager coaching and mentoring, while also allowing you to leverage frequent performance data to update and maintain your skills database. So you can use the data to align employees to relevant projects, identify new training opportunities to get ahead of skill gaps, or to identify succession candidates and plan for the future. You can also take a moment to look at the templates and questions you have in your existing performance tools. Can you include skills questions in your next performance review? Or build out a new skills-related feedback template to help employees get feedback on the skills they're developing. You can also begin to require employees to add a few skills development goals to their personal goals or OKRs. And you can even add questions about your organization's skills strategy to your engagement or pulse surveys. So before we open for Q&A, I want to direct you to the Documents tab in the right-hand panel. So it's shown as Docs. You'll find a number of downloadable resources there that could come in handy, including a recently published skills fitness report. It's fantastic. You can also find links to a video and a link, should you wish to schedule a personal demo of the Betterworks product. So with that, we're going to go ahead and answer any other questions that have not been answered yet. I have been responding to questions live in the chat, but I know there was one I wanted to get. I'm going to scroll back. I wanted to get your help with, Bruce. And that was a question, Rajat, on: is the conversation tab only for immediate manager? Or is it also open for cross-functional stakeholders, as a lot of teams work in a matrix-based structure?
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, it's something that we've put a lot of thought into in Betterworks. We know that nowadays it's very unusual for there to be just a sole manager who has complete responsibility. Often, as you said, Rajat, the organization will be matrix in format, so we'll have multiple managers, or we find more and more people are going on to very agile project teams, for example, where a project manager is going to be working with them for 6 months and will have much better visibility of the performance of the employee than the actual line manager will. So yeah, we do have within that performance review process the ability to allow additional stakeholders to be brought into it. Up to 3 additional people alongside the line manager can be brought in. And importantly, with that, bringing those people in, there's also controls around whether or not the information that they enter is going to be seen by the employee, or whether it's just the line manager who sees what that other stakeholder, that matrix manager, enters. So in Michelle's case, if she's a manager, she might see information from the other matrix manager and then use that data to give the reply back to Michelle to make sure that it's all collated. Michelle never sees that other stakeholder. And also, I should say vice versa with the employee that Michelle's evaluating. It may not be appropriate for the information that employee enters to be visible to that matrix manager. So if you choose to, you can say that matrix manager can't see it, only Michelle can see as the manager of that employee. Again, just very configurable and flexible.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Bruce. And there were also, a number of really great questions about Skills AI and Goals AI, which I did answer within the chat. However, just to kind of elaborate on that, some of the key things we're trying to keep in mind as we're delivering AI into our product is really a thoughtful approach and keeping the human in the center of this always, right? We are talking about human resources. So making sure that we keep the human in the center, but leveraging all that power and the power of the data and the AI to make life easier for the user. So as an example, instead of an employee coming into their talent profile with no skills identified, we're going to recommend skills based on that performance data that exists in the system. And it'll be continuously refined and updated. So as that employee accomplishes new goals, gets new feedback from peers, has conversations with their manager, the AI is going to be able to propose even, new skills that they happen to be building. So it should make life really easy for the employee. And same goes for the goals assist. So with goals, we're going to look at their job title and their areas and rooms for development, right? So based on feedback from peers, at their managers' goals, at their top company goals, and really look at all that information, synthesize it, and recommend professional and developmental goals, something that might be a little bit more challenging for an employee to do on their own. And that's where we see the power of AI, right, Bruce, like coming into play here for folks.
And I think, Cheryl, one of the other key things that I think is almost a side product we didn't even think about when we were building the AI in, is that employees and managers get quite excited by the goal assist and by the way that it generates based on information that they enter. And so they suddenly start realizing that the more detailed, the more focused the information they enter the tool, the better the goal assistant becomes at suggesting things to them. And therefore they start trying to get more feedback. They'll go out to their peers and say, I want you to give me feedback so I get better goals. And they'll make sure the manager actually spends the proper time with them on the performance review so that when they then click that goal assist button, they get really, really focused, tailored suggestions coming through. And it's been really exciting to see our customers start to notice that from their employees and just have that kind of virtuous circle being built.
Exactly. We had another great question from Asha, and I want to address that, but just want to highlight if there are any other questions, please get in the chat so that we can answer those before we wrap up. We'll wrap up a bit early, but I'm sure everyone will appreciate a little bit of time back in their day. So Asha asked, how does Skills AI align to role mapping and career mapping? And as I answered in the chat, we're sort of touching on that right now with the ability for within the talent profile, the employee to identify roles that they are interested in. And it's definitely an area of future investment for us. So we're just starting to scratch the surface of what we want to do around skills and around development and career pathing, et cetera. So we're really excited about the future as it pertains to that, and think that AI is just going to be really transformational in helping employees, envision a career path for themselves within an organization. And I don't know if you have anything else to add, Bruce, but I know, given I have insight on the roadmap, I'm probably the best one to speak to that.
Absolutely. I just get very excited whenever you bring out the roadmap and I can see some of the things that are coming up. But very good.
Great. And we have another question here. Skills and competencies. How do both align using Skills AI as a part of performance management? Yeah, that is a good question. We're very focused on skills, and we do have many organizations leveraging our platform to assess competency. So all that data and information, if you're using it in that way, will be in the platform. So we will be able to assess that through AI. I don't know if you have anything additional to add, Bruce, based on your experience with users organizations. Yeah.
We often find that competency models tend to be something that organizations will carry out in either targeted parts of the business, maybe in the more technical areas of the organization. And often it will be something that's only really manageable either in that small area or in a smaller organization. As you get bigger and bigger, those kind of very focused competencies don't really translate so well, which is why most people move to a more skills-based focus. But as Cheryl's already highlighted, we do have companies that use competency processes within our tool. It's something that we support and we help them to do. But also building in that skills process just allows you to be much more holistic. You can compare people from across the business rather than expecting people to have the specific roles that only that one job is likely to hold. So it just gives you a bit more freedom.
Exactly. Thank you. I think that is it for incoming questions that I can see. And as Kate mentioned in the chat, if you want to go deeper and have a customized demo, just click on that link in the Docs tab, and we can get all of your detailed, specific questions answered for sure. So, yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, like I said, we can end just a little bit early today and give folks time back, which I know we all appreciate. And thank you for joining us as we talked about skills and succession within Betterworks. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.